Welcome to Module 5. We're on the fourth letter of focus, U, for understand variation and root causes. In the last module, we mapped the feeding process and found where it breaks down. This module asks the harder question, why? Why does it break down there? This is the step that separates real quality improvement from educated guessing. The temptation is always to leap from a problem straight to your favorite solution. But if you skip the why, you end up treating symptoms while the real cause quietly keeps generating new ones. Over the next 10 to 15 minutes, we'll learn 4 tools: the Fishbone diagram to brainstorm causes broadly, the 5 whys to drill down to root cause, the Pareto chart to find the vital few causes that matter most, and the crucial distinction between common cause and special cause variation. By the end, we'll have a real diagnosis of why NEC was happening in the Tiny Steps unit. Let's dig in. First, build a Fishbone diagram, a structured way to brainstorm causes across many categories so you don't fixate on the first one. Second, drill down with the 5 whys, moving from a surface symptom to the root cause underneath. Third, use a Pareto chart to identify the vital few causes that drive most of the problem so you know what to tackle first. And fourth, read variation. Learn to tell ordinary common cause noise from a genuine special cause signal, because reacting to the wrong one makes things worse. Together, these 4 tools take you from something's wrong here to this specific thing is why.
Here's the idea at the heart of this module. Treat the cause, not the symptom. Picture this. Your NEC cases seem to cluster around feeds being advanced too fast. The obvious response, on the left, is to remind staff to go slower. But that treats the symptom. You'll be sending that reminder forever because whatever's generating the fast advancement is still sitting there untouched. On the right is the root cause response. Why is advancement inconsistent in the first place? Often because there's no shared feeding protocol. So the word slow genuinely means something different to every clinician. One person's cautious is another's aggressive. Standardize feeding with one shared protocol, and the symptom stops appearing because you fixed the thing producing it. That's the whole game in this step. Every tool we're about to cover, Fishbone, 5 whys, Pareto, exists to get you from the symptom on the left to the cause on the right.
Tool number 1 is the Fishbone diagram, also called an Ishikawa or cause and effect diagram. It's the workhorse of this step. And here it is built for our problem. You write the problem at the head of the fish, on the right, our NEC rate of 7%. Then the team brainstorms causes along the bones, grouped into categories. A common set is the 6 M's, easily adapted to healthcare: people, methods, materials, equipment, measurement, and environment. Watch how it spreads the thinking out. Under people, no shared sense of what safe advancement even means. Under methods, no standardized feeding protocol. Materials, mother's own milk not available early. Equipment, limited pump access at the bedside. Measurement, inconsistent reading of gastric residuals. Environment, high workload delaying feeds and pumping. The whole point of the categories is breadth. They stop a team from fixating on the first cause someone shouts out and force you to look everywhere before judging anything. Build it out loud with the team. And notice already, several of these bones point back toward the same place, the lack of a standardized, owned process. If the Fishbone gives you breadth, the 5 whys gives you depth. You take one important cause and ask why over and over again, usually about 5 times, until you reach something you can actually act on, rather than just another symptom. Watch it work. The problem? An infant developed NEC after rapid feed advancement. Why? Feeds were advanced faster than is safe for that infant. Why? The nurse used a different pace than the dietitian intended. Why? There was no single written feeding protocol. Each was going on training and habit. Why? The unit never standardized feeding. It was left to individual judgment. And one more? Why? Because no one owned feeding practice as a system to be designed. Look where we landed. The root cause isn't a careless nurse or a careless doctor. It's the absence of an owned, standardized feeding protocol. That's a system problem. And crucially, it's something you can actually fix. The 5 whys almost always walk you from blaming someone at the top to fixing a system at the bottom.
That shift is the entire value of the tool.
Tool 3, the Pareto chart. The idea behind it is the Pareto principle, the famous 80-20 rule. Roughly 80% of a problem usually comes from about 20% of the causes. The chart makes that visible. You count how often each cause shows up, then plot them as bars from most frequent to least. Here's our NEC analysis. The team reviewed recent cases and near misses and counted contributing factors. Late mother's own milk, 34%. Non-standardized advancement, 28%. Residuals held ambiguously, 18%. Then antibiotic and antacid overuse at 12%, and a tail of other factors. That navy line climbing across the top is the cumulative total. Watch it cross the green 80% line after just the first 3 bars. That's the punchline. 3 causes account for about 80% of the risk. Those are your vital few. This is what keeps a team from spreading itself thin across 20 causes. It replaces "I feel like X is the problem" with counted data, and it tells you exactly what to attack first for the biggest return. For tiny steps, those top 3 became the backbone of the prevention bundle.
Let's ground all of this in a famous, real project, because the tools we just covered are exactly how teams like this one actually work. A published multi-NICU collaborative spanning 8 intensive care nurseries faced a NEC rate of 8% in very low birth weight infants and set out to push it under 4, tracking progress on statistical process control charts. When they worked through their cause analysis, the same Fishbone and Pareto thinking we've been doing, they didn't end up with a sprawling to-do list. They landed on 3 evidence-based aims, their vital few. 1. Standardize early human milk feeding, getting mother's own or donor milk in early on a set schedule. 2. Feed conservatively around blood transfusions and indomethacin treatment. Hold or don't advance feeds during those higher risk windows. 3. Restrict ranitidine, an antacid whose use is linked to higher NEC risk. Notice these are the same themes our Pareto flagged: milk, feeding standardization, and the higher risk modifiers. By reliably delivering just a few high-impact changes, the collaborative drove its NEC rate down. That's the identical logic behind the Tiny Steps bundle. Root cause tools don't just diagnose, they tell you the short list of things actually worth doing. Tool 4 is less a tool than a way of seeing, and it's one of the most important ideas in all of QI. Every process varies. The question is what kind of variation you're looking at, because the 2 kinds demand opposite responses. Common cause, on the left, is the natural, routine variation built into the process itself. It looks like random ups and downs within a stable range. Our NEC rate wobbling month to month around 7%. The right response is to redesign the process. You do not react to any single data point. Special cause, on the right, is an unusual, specific event from outside the normal process. It looks like a spike, a shift, or a trend that clearly stands out. Say, a cluster of cases right after a new milk handling change. The right response there is the opposite. Investigate that specific cause. And here's the classic, costly mistake: reacting to common cause wobble as if it were special cause. Your NEC rate ticks up one month and everyone panics, hunts for a culprit, changes 3 things at once. That's called tampering, and it usually makes a stable process worse, not better. Telling these 2 apart reliably is exactly what run charts and control charts are for, and we'll build those in Module 9, the study step.
Let's pull the Tiny Steps diagnosis together, because this is where all 4 tools pay off. Root cause. Working through the Fishbone and the 5 whys, the team kept landing on the same thing. Feeding was never standardized. The scattered symptoms, the variable advancement, the inconsistent residual handling, the late mother's own milk, all traced back to one missing thing: an owned written protocol. Vital few. A Pareto review of their cases pointed to a short list of drivers, and that list became the backbone of the prevention bundle. Standardized feeding initiation and advancement, early mother's own milk, conservative handling of residuals, and judicious antibiotic and antacid use. And the variation type. This was common cause, a stable but unacceptably high 7%, produced by the system itself, not by bad individuals having bad days. That single insight is why the team's answer was to redesign feeding practice rather than to blame or retrain staff. Notice the diagnosis is complete and we still haven't chosen a single intervention. That's deliberate. Picking the fixes is the next step. Select.
5 traps to avoid in this step. 1. Jumping to solutions. The moment your team starts debating fixes, it is stopped diagnosing. Catch it and steer back to why. 2. Stopping at the first why. That first answer is nearly always still a symptom. Keep drilling. The root is usually 3 or 4 whys down. 3. Blaming people. Human error is almost never a true root cause. When you hear it, ask why the system allowed that error to happen. 4. Opinion over data. Don't let the loudest or most senior voice set priorities. Use a Pareto count of what actually happened. And 5. Reacting to noise. Don't treat ordinary common cause wobble as a special cause crisis. That overreaction usually makes a stable process worse. Tiny Steps avoided all 5, which is why their diagnosis pointed cleanly at a fixable system instead of a list of people to retrain.
Let's bring it together. Understand in 4 lines. 1. Ask why. Find the root causes before you choose any fix. 2. The fishbone gives you breadth across the 6 M's, and the 5 whys gives you depth down to the root. Use them together. 3. Pareto finds the vital few causes, the roughly 20% that drive 80% of the problem, so you know what to tackle first. 4. Distinguish common cause, where you redesign the system, from special cause, where you investigate the specific event. Next time, in Module 6, we select the intervention. With the root causes named, we choose the changes most likely to work, weighing the evidence and prioritizing, and we finally assemble the NEC prevention bundle that the Tiny Steps team will put to the test. Before then, try the self-check. Question 2 is the one that catches people. Your rate jumps from 7 to 9% in a single month. What's the very first thing you should ask before you sound any alarms? See you in Module 6.